gotten a number of comments from the public, and it would appear that we are going to get a number of more comments from the public. That does not mean we won't be having our public discussion today. We will be having that. That just means that we will, I'm suggesting that we take a week to actually consider what is said here today and what is been mailed to us, emailed and sent by letter form. So I'm suggesting that we take that week to take a serious consideration of what the public has to say in this particular case. That's my motion. Discussion.
Commissioner, there would be nothing stopping us from taking that week. My concern is we obviously have a lot of people here that would like to be heard on this item that has been published as a regular agenda, and I hesitate to pull the rug out from underneath them when they're clearly here to be able to speak on something that has been noticed and published as the regular agenda. Again, there's nothing stopping us, and in fact, if it's possible, I would support taking a longer time to reflect on with regard to these tax levies unless there's some clear agreement. But I can't support taking something off the agenda, two important items off the agenda, when people have clearly taken time out of their day to show up specifically. I think a lot of people are here to speak on those two issues. So perhaps we could entertain a motion later to carry them over to a later date. But I would like to give the public the maximum opportunity possible to speak concerning these important issues that we've already published. So for that reason, I will respectfully be opposing your motion to amend to delete those items from the agenda.
Commissioner Owen, you have any comments at all? No. Okay, please call the roll.
Commissioner Nolte?
Yes.
Commissioner Ridgway?
No.
Commissioner Owen?
No. Call that. You're reading the order.
I'm sorry. Were you moving on with the public hearing?
Yes, sir. Okay. I just want to make sure we have anything else to say before I do that. Okay. We will now hold the public hearing on the tax levies. This is a statutory requirement that we get input from the public, and this is the time when it would be appropriate for people to line up and make comments on their thoughts on the respective tax levies. Certainly. Mr. Richard.
Okay, the microphone is going on and off, so hopefully it will stay on. In the past, like probably maybe 4 years ago, there was a different procedure for publishing what the authorized and permitted amount was from the state auditor. It used to be a matter of kind of guesswork and assumptions, and the public hearing would be held, and no one really knew what was authorized by the state auditor pursuant to our constitutional provisions for tax levies. That process has been changed so that the people and the commission know in advance what has been authorized by the state auditor that in no way reflects what this commission may or may not do with regard to that. So I noticed that we have an unusual amount of people here today given tax levies. I just want to assure everybody that it's not my intention, I can't speak for the rest of the commission, but it's not my intention to agree with necessarily what the state auditor has authorized. It was published in the interest of full transparency as to what is authorized by the state auditor. That's not necessarily that has not been the tradition of this commission to agree or pass those amounts. So that might perhaps, depending on what the other commissioners have to say, that might perhaps lay some fears or concerns aside as to what the intent of this commission may be regarding the tax levies.
Thank you. I have, and I think maybe the best thing to do is to pass these off to the clerk. I've gotten some comments from citizens. Mr. Counselor, is that the proper way for me to distribute citizen comments, citizens who could not otherwise be here?
It is.
Very well. last two are for the associate commissioners, and I'm retaining my copy. Okay, with that said, what I've distributed is essentially a packet of comments from citizens who are not able to be here today. Some actually might be able to be here today. Included in that packet is a letter from the Kansas City Regional Association of Realtors who oppose. I'm going to try not to do too much editorializing. In fact, I'd rather not keep that to a minimum because the public hearing is, in fact, the opportunity for the people to speak. So please go, if you can, make your way to the microphone, and we will begin the public comment. And like I say, identify yourself. Please speak into the microphone.
My name is Randy Bledsoe, and I'm here for myself, but I'm more so here for a condo association complex in the middle of Gladstone where 95% of the people are senior citizens. I have managed this complex. I don't live there. My mother-in-law lives there. And the people are to the point of almost giving me chickens and potatoes to pay their HOA dues. And mind you, the association dues are only $115, which is astronomically low. But because of people like myself, we do things for free to keep the costs down. These people, like my mother-in-law, I pay her taxes. She's on a fixed Social Security income. She cannot afford it. She can't afford it. But I have to take on the taxes. I have to take on her insurance. She's having to pay for additional insurance because she's retired. You can't get blood out of a turnip. And I mean, it just keeps going up and up. And I, for one, had enough. I don't know if everybody else, I don't want to put blame, but somebody votes on this. Someone makes a decision on this. And we've paid our share. And I've had enough.
Thank you very much. Thank you. People here. It will move a lot faster. We'll hear a lot more comments if you could refrain from outbursts like that. Like I said, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but I want to allow as much time as possible for citizens to comment. Please proceed.
Good morning, Commissioners, staff, and other individuals that are here today. My name is Jane Putnam. I come as an individual, but also with comments and concerns from other citizens that are not here. And first of all, I'd like to thank the gentleman for the invitation this morning where you were seeking a higher level of wisdom to be good stewards with our resources.
Please make sure you make comments to the chair.
All right.
No problem. Thank you.
And then also I'd like to know, with the tax levy, us being third, Clay County third in the state of Missouri, it almost appears that are we trying to compete for the first place? Our levy is much higher than the other 114 counties in the state of Missouri, and I have a concern about that. It's almost like we're seeking higher income levels of people to live here, because if our average income is around $63,000 a year, increasing our taxes even more is quite a burden on us, and I just really like to have that considered. Another point is I wonder when and where did perhaps the three of you survey the citizens and the property owners to see if we wished and saw the need? I mean, tell me why I need it, and I will certainly take that into consideration. And lastly, I'd just like for you not to spend money that you don't have and put us in debt. Spend what you do have. And I think it might be a good idea to put any tax increase on, table it until after this county audit and the expenses of that is taken care of. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
I believe Ms. Commissioner Owen had a question.
I've been talking to people over the last month, ever since this sort of maximum that the auditor said that we could do, and so I got several calls on it, and so I said, well, this is the maximum that we could do. I'm not in favor of any maximum we can do. Matter of fact, I'm more in favor of keeping it the same as it is, as it was last year. But the question I have, a lot of people, when I talk to them, I ask the question, do you know how much money of the taxes you pay goes to the county? And most of them, they know how much they spend, the total amount for taxes, but they don't know really how much goes to taxes, to the county. And I'll just give you an example.
Commissioner, the things we will be discussing this later on. If you could confine your questions to clarify what the citizen is talking, and then when we take that up during our regular session, our regular agenda, then those comments I think would be in order.
Whatever, $100 you spend, the county gets 16.5 cents. 16.5 cents for every $100 that you spend on taxes.
Okay, and of that money, I want to make sure that you spend my 16 cents with good stewardship in mind and don't go spending beyond your means. I can't spend beyond my means also.
And what was published would have brought the 16.5 cents up to, I believe, just under 52 cents.
Yeah.
The documentation correctly. And please, if you have any further comments.
No, thank you. Appreciate
Thank
your
you very
time.
much. Next person, please.
I want to thank the commissioners for helping us to get this tax levy increased to what it could be because of some actions in the past. In Clay County, about 37 years ago, our voters had the foresight to recognize the need for this tax to help those that are in need of mental health services. My hunch would be now that if we took a poll of those in this room, or those walking down the street, that the thought would be that it would always be at 0.10 cents. It gets very complicated, as you know, because there's so many things that enter into it. But I hope that we never see a rollback of taxes on the backs of those that are in need of mental health services. So I thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for working with us to get the tax levy back up. And I know that this year it will be at like 0.984 or 986, whatever. But we're getting it back to where it would be of a service.
Just a point of clarification, just so everyone knows that we have two different things that we're talking about today, and some of them are outside agencies, and I apologize that it just keeps going on. Okay, now it's on. We'll touch it. The mental health board gets approximately 9 cents per $100 of assessed valuation, and I think you all do a tremendous amount with a relatively small tax levy. I'm looking at my own taxes here. I pay $10.42 for $100 of assessed valuation for my school district. You all are basically getting 10 cents. And I'm not complaining, we have good schools. But let's get some facts out there. On the tax bill, the lion's share, by far, goes to pay for elementary and secondary education. Again, in my district, $10.42. And you all are providing mental health for the people of 3 counties, Tri-County, for 10 cents for $100. That's a vast, vast difference. And it's my understanding that you have been authorized to renew the same tax rate that you had last year. So there would be no increase. And that tax rate is 0.0984. So slightly less than 10 cents for $100 assessed valuation. And I have no problem with that. I think you do a tremendous job being good stewards, and the board does a good job.
And just as a refresher, it's less than 0.5% for our administrative director.
Which is excellent.
So the bulk of this money that's collected goes for those mental health services in the three-county area. And in Clay County, the last couple of years, it's been a little over $4 million that we have collected. There's about 12 agencies that are receive funding from that.
By the way, I was just talking with the assistant administrator on a technical point, because I noticed Commissioner Ridgway's microphone's going in, and I saw it going green, red. What I was told was our best opportunity to be heard through these mics is to speak directly into it. I can kind of hear you, but a little bit more volume if you could manage would be great. The other thing is, I appreciate the comments that you're making, but since you're with one of these organizations, I think it would be more appropriate that we take it up when we take up that particular issue and when we open this up more to the public and to people who are on the boards and commissions that we assign.
Okay, thank you for
Thank
that.
you very much.
Thanks for your help.
Are there any others?
I've been a resident of
Little more
Clay.
into the mic, please. There you
My
go.
name is Roy Werner. I've been a resident of Clay County since 1981. Third house that we're in, we purchased in 2004. We have watched the taxes go up on that house 20.81% to 2017. We don't live in an affluent neighborhood. I'm not sure how you assess value, but my wife is the only one working. I'm unable to work. I have some disabilities that we're dealing with. And I think the people of Clay County are saying enough is enough. You know, if you're having financial problems, you need to go back and overhaul how you do business. It's sad. I mean, we need support from the county. We need our county sheriff. But somewhere along the line, we have lost sight of how we take care of our bills. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Statement? No, please proceed.
Just so that I'm absolutely clear, you're saying no tax increases.
Correct.
Thank you, and I agree.
Is there any other citizen who would like to make comment?
Good morning, Commission. Thank you. My name is Jennifer Langston Justice with the Realtors. And continuation of property taxes continues to hurt those that need it the most. So the exact people that we're trying to help here are being hurt. I don't think homelessness is going to increase, our property values, etc. We already have an affordable housing crisis in the city. It is only going to be exacerbated by additional taxes. I would like to ask what the intent is for this.
For the increase on those taxes?
Well, earlier it was stated that that was not the intent. I'd like to know what the intent is.
Mr. Mitchell, I think that was your comment. Would you like to clarify?
My personal intent is to just leave the tax rates alone. I can't, obviously I can't hold my other commissioners over here at the moment. My intent is to leave it alone. I do have a question for you. You said you're Jennifer Langston Justice, and you said you're with the Realtors?
Correct.
Is that the Kansas City Regional Association of Realtors that we have a letter?
You have a letter from Derek Ramsey.
Okay.
He is the Government Affairs Director.
The question that I have is you cited a source in your letter, taxrates.org.
Correct.
When I call that up, it says the server cannot be found. Can you clarify that? You don't have to right now, but I'm curious. I've done some searches up here to find out about the searches, and it's my understanding that the tax rates that are calculated take into account all taxes, including the taxes that this commission has no control over, including school taxes that people vote on separately, including ambulance districts that people vote on separately. We don't control that. The library tax, people vote on that separately. We don't control that.
Once again, Commissioner, you're kind of going into the actual subject matter, and this is a period for public comment. So if you have a point of clarification for the statement or for the letters, as she's a member of that organization, please go ahead and
Sure. I just need clarification, not now, but at some point, could you please clarify the source from which you cited that I can't seem to get it to work?
I think that's the source that is available only to Realtor members, but I will follow up on that for you.
I would appreciate it. Thank you.
I think Commissioner Owen had a question.
One last thing, I think what most people have been saying so far
Microphone, please.
what most people have been saying so far, what I'm hearing, is that they're really concerned about these tax increases. And so what we had to publish was that what the state auditor said that we could go to. I don't know anybody up here wants to increase taxes. I'm not in favor of increasing any taxes.
I think the perception of the citizens, obviously, was that the intent was to increase taxes, and I believe that's why the turnout was this way today.
I don't know anybody who wants to increase taxes up here.
That sounds fantastic. Thank you for taking public comments today.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate that. I do understand the confusion, because quite honestly, I thought the intent was to raise taxes. And I opposed last year's tax increase. Please, next citizen who would like to comment. And it was also put in the agenda, so therefore the government, whether it be an individual commission or not, it seemed to be, has in fact taken action on that particular ordinance as well as the others. So please proceed.
And if you want to get technical, anything that you put on your agenda every week is proposed or intended. So that's just a matter of semantics. But to me, my next question is, are you going to actually publish and let us know if there's going to be a differentiation in these numbers before September 20th?
I can go ahead and answer it, because I believe that is as much a technical question as anything. As we have, we do not have a meeting prior to the statutory deadline of September 20. We are absent a subsequent special meeting between now and that time. We are obligated to take action on those two items at this meeting. So there will be a vote, there will be action taken when we get to our regular agenda. Does that answer the question?
Yes, but will there be another public hearing if these numbers are changed in any way? I think the people need to know that what the numbers are going to be before they're approved, before they're put on an agenda on a Friday afternoon.
These numbers, once the vote takes place today, those will be the numbers. So they will not be revisited absent someone having a special term session, and someone voting in the minority moving to reconsider. That rather arcane parliamentary procedure aside, what gets voted on today will in fact be those numbers. And that's why I want to emphasize that beyond the opportunity right now to speak on these, when we take these issues up, we will then become more involved as a commission in active discussion on those, because it's then a broader subject right now. Like I said, it's a public hearing, so the emphasis has to be on the public. When we take them up on our own, then of course the public will have the opportunity to make comments once again on each of those two. And just for another point of clarification, there's one issue that will be for outside entities like mental health, and then there will be a second ordinance proposed that will take the three items that I think you're most concerned with.
Right. Okay.
I have a follow-up answer to you also. I've got the newspaper.
Please in the microphone a little bit more.
I got the newspaper, and I have what was published in the newspaper. And it clearly states the following rates are the maximum tax ceiling as certified by the state auditor's office. What was published to the people has nothing to do with what an intent of this commission would be. It just says that the tax rate, these are the tax rate ceiling as certified by the state auditor's office. That is true. That is a fact. The public need to know that that is what is certified by the state auditor's office.
I agree, but this ordinance proposes and says nothing about the state auditor has authorized us to do this. This says that the commission is going to put these levies, going to approve these levies for 2018. And I guess we could debate it all afternoon.
A draft is a draft is a draft.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And I must say that I made the same assumption that you made, so I didn't really say much about it until I saw the proposed ordinance. And at that point, it went from what is our legal limit to an actual, in my mind, proposal of the county government.
And this, I think the majority of people here saw the ordinance, because a lot of people don't take the newspaper anymore, and B, don't take the Excelsior Standard. So it's very. Sorry.
I believe there may be someone here from the Excelsior Center. Please don't take it.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
So.
We love all of our publications.
The only thing that people were relying on was the agenda that was published on Friday afternoon.
Amen.
And that is where I got my information, and I realized, and like I said, I worked in the clerk's office. I know it went through a publication and went through the state auditor, and they give you all this recommendations and everything, and you are allowed a certain amount. But they also, that doesn't give them the authority for you to go ahead and fulfill that maximum proposed levy. And once again, we're talking about just between general, road and bridge, and park, a 35-cent increase. Think about that, please, when you're thinking about your taxpayers. And we understand that most of our taxes, 75% of it goes to school districts. We have nothing to do, you guys vote on your levies for the school district separately. That has nothing to do with the county commission. So these three are the ones that the county actually has control over. The commission actually has control over. So keep that in mind. Okay?
Thank you. And by the way, just for clarification, those are the three that we have control over and that we actually appropriate the money for.
Yes.
The ones to the outside agencies, just again for a point of clarification, while we have some control over those rates, those that are essentially passed through for us.
Right.
So we do not appropriate that money except to the degree that we make sure it gets to the proper outside agency.
And you also need to remember on your tax bills that your cities are included in that also.
Thank you very much.
So,
Next citizen, please.
Today, my name is Victor Hurlbert. I am the Clay County Auditor-elect, so I speak to you today as a citizen, not as an office holder. That won't be until next year. But I just really want a point of clarification. I'm not necessarily trying to make a point. I know the commission makes policy. The auditor's position is not. That said, I would like to take issue. This might be more appropriate when we bring up the actual ordinance itself. However, it's been stated that this is what the state auditor has said are the tax ceiling rates for these three levies. However, when you look at your own forms in that ordinance, the maximum rates you state on page 1 of 2018 Ordinance 16 are all above the tax ceiling documentation that you have in the following pages. It's a 27-page document that was posted, except for the general fund. That one is underneath the ceiling. Your own calculations have the general fund maximum at 0.308. However, when you go to that's for general revenue, then we look at Parks and Rec, it states that the ceiling is 0. And then when we go to Road and Bridge, it also states that the ceiling is 0.0849. On the very first page and the second page, however, it stated that the state auditor approved ceilings that are much above that. So this is really just a point of clarification. Maybe it's not something I'm in tune to. I'm trying to get as much information and up to speed as I can before I start and learning this process. However, that's just a complete, looks like a very aberration that I noticed. So I just want to make sure you all are making the policy decision, and I'm going to be the one enforcing that and making sure we do what the commission wants. But that said, I just want to clarify. I know that you're saying we may not even make an increase today. I know there's confusion on that, but I just want to clarify what is the actual cap for the state auditor. I put in a question myself, just ask the state auditor's office. It's probably going to take them weeks or months to get back to me on a simple question, but that's where I'm at.
Thank you. So, you had a question as to what is in fact the caps.
Correct.
Are you talking about the entire, I think, 6 or 7, or are you talking about the 3 that have been the main topic of discussion?
The 3 that are main topic, yes. Ordinance 16, I believe, is the agenda.
2018 Ordinance 16. I will ask staff, because this might be a question because of its technical nature that we would want to refer to staff. So, can anybody from staff enlighten us as to what the actual caps are? Are they as published, or are they at variance from what is published? has staff prepared those, so I assume that they're going to have the backup material.
Sure, and like I said, I look forward to working through that process and next year.
Sure. There are several, quite a number of pages, as Mr. Horowitz said, there's around 27 pages that are on here, and I noticed on parks, for example, on parks, on page 2, it does show different rates.
Oh, I'm sorry, I've got an indication there's some people not even looking at what you're saying.
Well, first of all, the discussion, I think, is good and appropriate. However, it does go to the specifics of 2018 Ordinance 16, which is on our docket to be specifically heard later.
The title of that ordinance is setting tax levies.
Setting tax levies for 2018.
Therefore, I think it is an appropriate, it is appropriate in order.
And I'm
Would
looking
you
for...
like to challenge the ruling of the chair on that?
But I just am looking that it says the percentage increase in adjusted valuation.
I'm sorry, we're still having trouble hearing you. I've got an indication from another person in the group.
On page 2, having to do with the parks tax out of the 27 pages of backup documentation, it says the percentage increase in adjusted valuation of line 9 is 0.4684%. So while I believe that we started with what our parks tax is right now, which is 0, it does discuss the maximum authorized levy by the most recent voter approved rate is 0.10. And these were documents that were all approved by working with the state auditor's office. So I think probably the best thing for us to do to get an accurate response on this is to make sure that we're on the same page with the state auditor's office. They've approved these documents.
Well, I see where you're going with this. However, it's a relatively simple question. I think the question, if I understand correctly, Mr. Herbert, is that your question is, are those maximums in fact authorized? And if not, what are the authorized maximums?
Yeah, I just want to make sure whatever you do or do not approve, that we keep the county on the straight and narrow in following with the state statutes. And if the auditor said that, then that's fine. I don't know what will be approved today. That's.
But I guess what I'm saying is, rather than sit here and go through the documents in detail, I think that staff prepared the documents. It's a relatively simple question. It's almost a yes or no question. So
yeah.
If staff could kind of enlighten us, the numbers that are included in 2018 Ordinance 16, those are accurate and those are verified by the state auditor. Is that correct?
Laurie Parkwood, Assistant County Administrator for Finance and Administrative Services. You actually have 2 documents that come back from the State Auditor's Office. One is the summary page that's been inserted into.
Could you speak a bit more in your mind, please? Thank you.
One is the pages that come back from the State Auditor's Office that's in your book that says summary page. There is another informational page that has also the same type of information, but it has the corresponding numbers with what you see in your budget or in your tax levy ordinance.
Our citizens don't have the benefit of having the package, so it was just the numbers reflected on the cover page, which many of them have seen, are in fact consistent with what they're not in variance with what the state auditor has authorized. Is that correct?
We have the informational data from the State Auditor's Office that corresponds with the tax levy ordinance that is in front of you today.
And those numbers are within those parameters?
Yes, they are.
Thank you. That was all I wanted, was just that verification then. Mr. Herbert, does that answer your question? It was kind of a yes or no question, I believe.
I think so. I think it does. Thank you for that. I'm addressing the commission again. Yes, I'm just curious why the following documents have maximums that are not as listed on the front page. That's all. Because they are much lower.
Please continue to speak if you mind.
Sorry. Okay. I'm done.
Thank you. Is there another citizen who would care?
Citizen. First of all, I'd like to say I'm a little disappointed that it was so hard to even find this information. The fact that it was only published in the Excelsior Spring Standard. seems to me a little fishy compared to all the publications in Clay County that would have been more widely read. It also was moved on your Clay County Transparency website to a different section just this week. So when most of us that went to where we normally find the agenda, it wasn't there, we had to look around for it. I think that's also kind of a timing issue, but I'm a little disappointed that it was so hard to find. Secondly, I did spend some time this weekend going through all the backup documents, trying to understand how the Clay County or how the auditor sets the maximum. It seems to me that it's a formula based on the budget divided by the valuation of the property. So if that's the case, then this ordinance 16 with these three items that are gone up 35 cents or 214%, my question is, why is the maximum ceiling so much higher than it was last year? Is that because our budget is so much higher or because our valuation is so much lower? That's what I'm trying to understand. Why would the maximums be so much higher this year than they were last year?
I guess another rather technical question. I think those are prepared documents. Is there any, can staff help us out on anyone? Yes, Commissioner.
I don't, without providing the document that she's referring to, I don't know if she's referring to what was authorized by the state auditor last year, if she's referring to what was approved by the commission last year.
That's a good point.
I don't know what she's talking about.
That's a good point. Perhaps if you could be more specific, if you could cite the pages that you're referring to.
Yes, last year, the maximum on...
You're on 2016, you're on 2016, correct?
Last year, on the general levy, the maximum allowed by the auditor, by the state, was .0853 per $100 of assessed valuation. This year, it's .1121. That's just, you may not have the answer to this because I know that you're just going off of the backup documentation that the auditor sent. I suspect that it's because the budget is so much higher. And in order for the budget to be so much higher, it would indicate to me that we probably have more people. I would assume Clay County is growing. So in that case, the valuation would go up, the levy would stay the same. So again, it only goes to, I believe this is an indication that our expenses are going up, up, or the audit or the state would not have made that upper level so high.
I think Commissioner Ridgway might have some of that. By the way, just for historical clarification, the year previous, it was 7.66 cents, and then to go to that maximum, it went to 8.53 cents, and of course we find ourselves at the 1 cent in the general fund category.
Just keeps going up, up, again, which would indicate to me that we're spending more and more and more, not relative to the additional property valuation.
Commissioner Ridgway?
I've found the documents from the Missouri State Auditor's Office dated October 3rd, well, it's actually scanned October 3rd, 2017. But as of 8/17/2017, the tax rate ceiling was authorized at .3088, which is the same that was published as being authorized this year. What was actually adopted by this commission in 2017 Ordinance 31 was .0853. So, well, basically 8.5 cents per $100 of assessed valuation, not the ceiling that was authorized by this document that I have from the state auditor that allowed it to be as high as .3088. We did not adopt that.
Okay, so then this goes back to Sherry Duffett's comment. The ordinance 31.
Please in the microphone.
The 2017 Ordinance 31 is just the same draft document of the one we're looking at today. And it says, that after publication and a public hearing, Clay County levy rate for general is established at .0853. So last year, you put in the draft document your intent, but not this year. This year, you put what was allowed. So I am wrong if that's the case. I didn't go back last year to see what the maximum allowed was. I assumed you went on the same premises this year, that what you published was what was allowed. So again, I'm disappointed that the documents don't reflect consistently from year to year.
Thank you very much. Just trying to do kind of a quick straw poll just to kind of get an idea of our timeline was on this. Thank you. Please proceed.
Hello, my name is Ken Boschert. I've been a resident of Clay County since 1956, my entire life. I think a lot of the problem is, Commissioner, you guys have created a lot of distrust among our people of Clay County as far as how you guys are handling your position with the three-member board. It seems like we're going over a lot of the same things, but in an hour that I've been here, I've heard all three of you say there will not be a tax increase. Is that correct? Did I hear that from all three of you folks? As far as the things that you have control over?
I hesitate to speak for the other two, but I think for my part would prefer to decrease as a
okay, and we're all about decreases also. Those would be nice for a change. So I guess my question is, and I'm sure I'm not correct as far as parliamentary procedure, but why couldn't that be voted on while we're here, and let's hear you guys actually follow through with what you're saying, that there will not be a tax increase on the three items that you do control?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you brought that up, because sometimes we get within our own procedures, and it's easy to assume everybody knows what we're talking about. When we go from this discussion into our regular agenda, those issues, those are the first two issues we will be addressing, is the two tax levy issues. Those will not be behind closed doors. They will be in this same room with as many people who care to listen and comment as they wish. So that action will not be taken behind closed doors. That will be a vote that you will be able to hear our discussion on, that you will be able to comment on prior to our vote, and then you will be able to witness how it is in fact we do vote.
And I appreciate what you're saying. Again, I've heard from all three of you guys talk about you don't want any kind of a tax increase. So I would like to see that pass through, followed up with a correct vote that there will not be a tax increase. Because you've created a lot of distrust in the county. We have civil suits, we have criminal suits, we got audits going on that cost us all a lot of money that we put into the coffers. You guys do also, but we do as well. Is all we're asking for is good stewards of our money. And I don't feel like that's been going on for quite some time. And I'll be 62 next month. So it'd be nice if things would really be starting to run. You guys would actually do work and work for the people that help to pay your salaries. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else?
My name is Laura Weinschmidt. I'm a resident of Clay County since 1977. I have successfully operated a business for 41 years in Clay County. And I know that sometimes you have to raise your prices, and that's understandable, but they have to be gradual. And if I had raised prices on my business 214% in 1 year, I would not have a business. So I think that this is something that everyone understands. The price of everything goes up, but if the increases are necessary, first of all, I wish it was more open, more transparent. There's been an awful lot of shady things going on that have been brought to the public's attention, which has added to the distrust, I think, in everyone here, and that's why we're here. So I want to make sure that I can stay in business for the next 20 years, and I can't do that unless I can control my expenses. And if my expenses go up outside my control that much money, then I cannot do that. So I'm asking you to remember that there are lots of small businesses in Clay County, And we have been very good stewards of our money, and we don't spend more than what we have in our checking account. And we project how much we need before we spend it. And that's all I have to say.
My name is Christopher Alderman County. I've been a resident of Clay County since about 1980. I'm not going to touch much on the seniors, that's already been discussed. The other issue is my daughter works for a company that takes care of mentally challenged people. They are at a fixed income. They can't afford to pay higher rent because of higher taxes. Now, I've heard all three of you say you're opposed to higher taxes, but I do have one question. Why was it a year ago when Mr. Nolte wanted to reduce our taxes, was shot down 2-1 no, and then turned around and raised our taxes? When you say you're opposed to raising our taxes, I want to laugh. It's a joke. I've talked to many businesses in Clay County. The owners do not live in Clay County, but they have businesses in Clay County. And just because of last year's tax increase, almost had to shut down their business because they can't afford to raise their prices to pay for the taxes. It's a chain reaction that maybe needs to be pointed out. You raise taxes, businesses have to raise their prices, which means every one of us in Clay County are having to pay more. We're having to pay more for taxes, we're having to pay more for groceries, we have to pay more for rent, we have to pay more sales tax. It's ridiculous. So like the other gentleman said, I would like to see and hear for a fact that all three of you vote no on a tax increase. It's time we take our county back. President Trump wants to make America great again. Do your jobs and make Clay County great. In my opinion, that man sitting right there in the middle is the only one sitting up at that bench that's even trying to do anything for the best interest of Clay County. Thank you.
I feel as though if you do not raise your hand, you work to move time, that you were precluded from speaking. We want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to say their piece of what this process is supposed to be about. Proceed, please.
Thank you. My name is Matt Ryan Schmidt. I'm a lifelong resident of Clay County, and I just want to reiterate what everyone's already said, that not increasing taxes, especially not an overnight 200+% increase in the part of the county commission here controls, would be the appropriate action. The gentleman has now made a good point of referencing that there's a massive follow-on effect too, and these cost increases aren't just isolated, and it's not just in one place or another, but you know, a commission raises their rates here, a business raises their prices there, and meanwhile you can't just vote yourself a pay raise of 200% to offset all that. So I would urge the commission to stick to the apparently stated idea that they're not going to raise any taxes this year or follow-on years too, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other citizens who would care to comment? See one more coming forward.
Good morning, Brady Olson, also the mayor of Excelsior Springs, and I appreciate your time today as a citizen. As an elected official, I understand all the issues, and Ms. Ridgeway, I appreciate your explanation to everybody in the room. I do think that there's probably a little bit of miscommunication, and I don't want to always blame this on the same thing, but if it wasn't for social media and all the comments that nobody reads the newspaper, there'd probably be three of us here today instead of the room full it is. I think 95% of us in here probably are going to say the same thing over and over and over. It's a tough job that you have to do. It's a tough job that we have to do. That being said, I look around the room, I see everybody looking at their watches, whether it's the people standing around or staff. We'd all like to get out here in a timely fashion today. We all have jobs to do, so I would appreciate, everybody that wants to say their things, but not repetitive over and over, and we can let you do your job and get to the point that you have a vote, which is everybody here, is to see your vote. All right? I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Is there any other citizen?
Citizen in Clay County for probably 30 years. The reason I'm here today is because it's Jerry's Post. Is that something that you put out there?
I'm sorry, which post?
It says Jerry's Post.
Oh, Jerry's Post. Well, it's Jerry's Post probably, so without seeing it, I didn't know.
Okay, I'll let you see it.
Okay, come forward. Yeah, I want to make sure you're environmental, that way it's all.
Okay.
As it should be.
Anyhow.
Yeah, I did see that posted.
You did do this post?
I believe so.
Okay, but it says here that it would take, Clay County says it's estimated to be almost $21 million.
That would be, yeah, that number was derived from if all three of those particular issues were put together, that's what it would, what would be the revenue derived from that. When I arrived at that number was I looked at 2018 ordinance 16, and within the paperwork on that it says what the rate would be and what the expected revenue would be. So those are the numbers I worked from, added those up, and that's how I came up with the almost 21.
Right. Now, this is going to be money that we're going to be spending that we don't have? Is that why we need this tax increase then?
First of all, I don't think we need that tax increase, so that's not really, I don't know that I have an answer to that particular thing. I think that right now it's around 6.5 million. I have to revisit that number. I think 21.
52 million.
52.
Right.
No, that's a different issue altogether. No, the 52 million is an issue that has to do with a bonding issue, which we will be taking up at some future date. So it's not a part of the levy. I want to have that discussion, but this is not the proper time and place. I do want to have that discussion, though. In fact, I want to have it very badly. But right now, what we're talking about is just the property tax levy that under 21 million came from the addition of the numbers provided in 2018 ordinance 16.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. No. But to answer your question, no, I am absolutely, as I think when we look about the sentences in there, so I'm vehemently opposed. I have not changed that position.
Okay, then where's the money going to come from to pay for this?
Pay for
this 21 million.
The 21 million is not really spent. That would be, we would get it, and then that money would be rolled into a respective budget. So it's not money that we are spending currently. That is to say the difference. What is right now, the amount being derived from those is what we have and what we budget for. What I'm saying is the difference, the upcharge from that would be what we do not need. No problem, I appreciate it.
Citizen of Chase County since 1980 or 1992. And my question is, what is the annual surplus or deficit of the county currently?
We are not allowed to run a deficit. Would you go ahead and repeat your name, please? I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jim Shrimpton.
Thank you very much. The current debt we are not, I believe, allowed to carry. Well, we can have debt and indebtedness, but we cannot deficit spend. The debt that the county carries at the moment, and this gets a little bit beyond the actual subject matter, but I'd like to allow latitude to citizens and questions. The actual debt that this county is carrying is really very modest. That's an issue that would be further explored in any perspective on the issues. So that would be where we would be talking about that more. But it is, assistant administrator. I mean, it is virtually hundreds of thousands.
Commissioner, I can answer that. I mean,
please go ahead.
The debt of this county is virtually non-existent. We operate below budget.
I'm sorry, can you, yes, one more time, please.
The debt is virtually non-existent. We operate typically below budget every year. County's on sound financial footing. If you would compare us to any other political subdivision with anywhere near the size of citizens that we serve, we're in great financial shape.
If you asked 3 times, and you kind of done your due diligence in making sure that all who wish to come and have come forward. So it's not me just being repetitive, it's trying to make sure that all people can be heard. Please proceed.
Hello, my name is Jeff McCauley, Smithville, Missouri. Photograph all you want, to Warriors.
Well, that's not strictly on the discussion, but we'll let that one go.
My concern is, I, like everybody else, am not in favor of tax hikes, so I'm not going to beat that dead horse. I'm concerned because how the money is used. if that could be part of the discussion. My big concern was
more into the microphone, please. So
okay, sorry.
Thank you.
My understanding was that the sheriff's budget got cut dangerously low to the point where our deputies can't perform their job safely. My big concern was I hate seeing light drug coffins with cops and their widows and orphans behind them. How can we fix that?
That would be on our agenda item today. I will say that except to the degree that I guess to the degree the general funds are used to finance the sheriff and his deputies in that department, there is not a specific line item for law enforcement on here. I tell you, I share your concerns. I think the horrific cuts that we've seen in the sheriff's department are very alarming. That is something that I hope that we will address when we start our deliberations over our budget. I think that's something that should be certainly restored to the sheriff. But as far as today's levy, I think because of the fact that we do use general funds in part to finance the sheriff's department, we're talking about what that money would be used for. So I would like to give you the latitude to go ahead and discuss that if you would like to a little bit further.
Well, just it seems that there's no actual reason for a tax increase. We have increased the citizens. They pay increased property valuations. And because of that, Clay County is already getting more money. Why do they need to hike the percent as well?
I think that's a valid question. I believe it was 2014, our budget was somewhere around 73 million. Currently, I think we're 106 million. And as you point out, there are property reassessments, and I believe next year is the reassessment year, which will, to one degree, we all hope our property values go up right up to the point to where a little bit more charged on our taxes. That is another concern I would have about raising these taxes at this time is that we are going to be looking at reassessment coming up very soon, and I see that as another another increase that is not necessarily voted on or deliberated on that. Please.
Just to make sure everybody knows, when you say we are looking at reassessment, the commission does not do reassessment. That is why you have an elected assessor.
So that is exactly right. I meant we as the government. Thank you for that clarification.
It's going to take on more news than we have to.
I'm not going to be standing outside in front of your yard with a clipboard and a pen trying to figure out what you have done to improve the value of your home. So, no, that is true. That is an issue that will be handled by the assessor's office, who is independently elected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Today,
I was in the minority on that vote, and voting in the minority does not mean that, while I may disagree, that is what was agreed on by the commission. And so the decision of the commission stands, and we will be voting on it today. I don't know that I have the option of saying we can vote on it.
You're okay then with going ahead while people are here so that they can see the vote? You're okay?
Actually, that was why I had said we will wait to take a break after that period.
Your motion before is confused. I want to make sure that we're all okay.
It's just we've been here for a while, and I think restroom breaks might be in order at some point. But I didn't want to make that break in our meeting until after we've dealt with the two tasks that we proposed. So you're okay with that particular plan?
Yeah, fine.
Commissioner Owens?
Yes.
Okay. So with the consensus of the commission, what we will do is we will go forward with our agenda. We will hear the two tax levy issues.
Ordinance of the Clay County Commission, Clay County, Missouri, 2018 Ordinance 15, setting outside agencies tax levies for 2018, and a member of Finance and Administrative Services will speak.
Please proceed.
Laurie Portwood, Assistant County Administrator for Finance and Administrative Services. Before the Commission in 2018 Ordinance 15, are the tax levy rates for 3 outside agencies: mental health, developmental disabilities, and senior services. And there is a representative from each one of those outside agencies present to speak.
Before we proceed, I believe Commissioner Owen has something.
Well, the question I had is that is these levies, these rates in here, is that the same as it was for this past year?
The mental health levy is .0984, which is the same as last year. Developmental disabilities last year was .1181. It is now .1180. And senior services last year was .0490, and this year it is .0491. That is the maximum amount they can ask for.
Just to follow up on Commissioner Owen's question, so it looks to me like there's going to be a slight decrease in DDRB, developmental disabilities, and the same increase in senior services, so it's essentially a wash.
That's correct.
Yes, you have any, Commissioner Richard, or we?
Just to clarify, it's my understanding that the boards of Mental Health Board, the Developmental Disabilities Resource Board, and the Senior Services Board all approved of the request that's in our Resolution 2018 Ordinance 15.
That is correct.
So even though there's a slight change in what's authorized for the developmental disabilities and a slight change in senior services, there's no net change.
Correct.
So effectively, although there's a 1/100th of a cent difference, it's basically a tax freeze.
Yes.
Very good. Are there representatives here for one of the boards that would like to come forward to speak? Or any of the boards for that matter?
I already made comments, so if you want to come over.
Are there any comments of the lady? Or any questions?
Maybe like I was speaking.
That's okay.
Okay, so I don't think there are any questions. If you'd like to further comment, certainly you're
I
welcome.
think I covered everything that I was.
Very well. Yes, please come forward.
I'm here to represent DDRB, and I will refrain from a speech I was going to make and be here to ask if there's any questions.
Well, come forward to the podium, if you wouldn't mind, please, and identify yourself. I kind of hate to have a sort of disembodied voices.
My name is Tom Bradley, and I am the treasurer of DDRB.
And my understanding is you have a statement that you had planned to read, but as it looks like we have consensus here. If I read you correctly, you're saying it would just kind of be a...
Well, it would be a waste of time when there's you got a lot of business, you don't need to, for me to pontificate.
Now, if you would like to, certainly, if you want to submit to the clerk for distribution for ourselves or me, we always welcome the input of those who work on these boards and commissions, because they're volunteers and they always work very hard. Would you please remain?
I want to thank you for serving on that board, or being the treasurer of that board, and I want to thank, this DDRB board is the most difficult, I think, most difficult board of what the county has, and I appreciate everybody that served in that board, and I want to thank you. You can tell me thank you for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that speaking to the commission, and I think Commissioner Ridgway is going to echo those remarks, if you could convey to the board the appreciation and deep respect we have for them as a commission, we appreciate that.
I will do that.
Commissioner Ridgway.
Now, just so people understand, Developmental Disabilities Resource Board, you have under your jurisdiction and care and funding for people who, through no fault of their own, they have mental impairments, physical impairments, and our county has grown, and you've got an ever-growing population with great needs, and good job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this issue before we go before I enter the motion?
Commissioner, would it be acceptable, given the fact that Ms. Morris Carolyn Morris is with the Mental Health Board. If we could just note that she is here in support for the record.
I assume she is, but is that? Yes, there you are. You can't get lost in the crowd there a little bit. Is that acceptable? She, in case it didn't pick it up before, she indicated that it was acceptable that she be entered into the records in support of the ordinance 2018 ordinance 15. Although, as you said from your prior comments, there wasn't very much doubt. Very well. Is there a motion on 2018 ordinance 15?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve 2018 ordinance 15.
Motion has been made on 2018 ordinance 15. Is there any further discussion? I just want to say I'm very pleased.
Hearing are the rates in the tax levy ordinance before you today. The Commission will need to set the tax levy rates for certification by the State Auditor's Office by September 20th, 2018.
Thank you very much.
I have an ordinance that I would like to distribute to all three commissioners. It proposes what I think has been echoed here from the dais since the levy began. The levy period began. It proposes a tax freeze. There will be no changes, no increases. It will just continue the existing levy as it existed in 2017 and was passed by this body in 2017. So with that, I make a motion that the ordinance that was distributed to the commissioners be adopted, and just for the purposes of the people in attendance here, it would remain the general revenue at 0.0853 cents per $100 of assessed valuation of road or bridge, no change. 8 cents per $100 of assessed valuation park, 0. Debt service, 0. And again, that is, I repeat, a tax freeze.
Have we distributed copies to staff and to the clerk's office?
I have an extra copy.
If someone would like to have that for the record, and really the clerk's part of that. Okay, sorry, you made a formal motion.
Yes, as distributed, I move for the adoption of 2018 ordinance 16, which is the tax freeze. I call the question.
Okay, question has been called. 2018 ordinance 16. Please call the roll. Oh, excuse me, before we proceed, just for the edification of those here, Commissioner Owen called the question. What that does is, that is a motion that absolutely cuts off further debate. There's no other debate allowed. We must immediately go to a vote, which I was just in the process of doing, but I wanted to make sure that there was an understanding of what was going on as that was going on. So, that being said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt Madam Clerk, but go ahead with the roll call.
Commissioner Ridgway?
Yes.
Commissioner Owen?
Yes.
Commissioner Nolte?
Yes.